So guys, what if Naruto was son of biblical god and Rias is slave in high school DxD movie? It had been almost 100 years since God died. The factions had been in shock. The 24-winged angel had always seemed invincible and unstoppable to even the combined forces of the four Satans. With a simple wave of his hand, the white light of creation became an explosion of death that single-handedly wounded at least two of the Satans simultaneously. He could split the earth with a flick of his finger, wield unstoppable holy elements that laid waste to armies and move as fast as light with his mastery of the golden wings he was God. One might wonder how such a perfect being could fall in battle. They would not be surprised when they discovered it was a sacrifice, a repercussion of saving the world from a being as strong as dreams. It all began in the beginning. In the beginning, there were no gods. Only dragons. There were two that stood out among the rest. Ophis, the infinite dragon god, and there was Great Red, the dragon of dragons. Ophis was the first, the being born from the infinity that is the universe and a being that bathed in the loneliness of the dimensional gap. She was surprised when she returned from one of her journeys to the other dimensions to see a dragon larger than any she had ever seen in her realm. She was even more surprised when she discovered she could not defeat this dragon by herself. It was then the infinite dragon god wished for help. Suddenly, there was the biblical God, a being born from the infinite power of the universe and the unstoppable force of dreams. The rest is history. Big Bang, let there be light, God created earth, etc. What was more important was God later made angels, a perfect species without sin. For a couple of millennium, these pure beings were enough. Angels were perfect, powerful with their lessened control over light as well as sinless due to the fact that any angel that sinned would fall from heaven. But God knew that a perfect species does not mean a better species, so he created humans. Initially, the angels had been apprehensive of these new creatures. They were weak and rather stupid, but God felt they held hidden worth. Lucifer was the one God sent to watch the creatures, but he soon gave into his inner desire to tempt the humans and was soon cast down from heaven. Lucifer had been thrown down from heaven with enough force to disfigure the 12 angel wings he had into a set of black wings that resembled more of a bat than a bird. Lucifer was not alone in his quest to defy the hand of God and soon was followed by 75 others. The three most powerful became his fellow devil kings while the rest became of heads of the 72 pillars, the high-class families of the underworld. With his new army, Lucifer went to war against his creator with the Grigori soon joining in to destroy the two forces opposing them. The Great War it was called, a war to end all wars. The fallen angels were the first to surrender, their leader Azazel believing that too many of his people had died for the cause, it was not worth it. For a while afterwards, the angels and the devils fought against the other. The result was sad to say the least. There was no clear winner between the two, and what was when worse was the leaders of both sides had been killed in the conflict. While many wondered how the Satans managed to defeat God even at the cost of their own lives, few understood that God had been in a weakened state for two reasons. It had been only a month before the final battle that God had learned from the angels that there was a new beast on the rise, one on the level of Great Red. It called itself Trihexa. God and Michael went into battle. Knowing the consequences if they were to fail, they were lucky enough to defeat the beast while it was surprised and sealed it away with 1,000 spells that not even the eldest in the land had heard of. This wiped out Case to 25% of God's power. The other was the secret project that the biblical God had planned, a project to create a true heir. He had combined both his own blood as well as the pure divine light that not even Michael could emulate into a being born with the same spark that started the Big Bang. God named this new creature Naruto, an unorthodox name for an unorthodox creature. This wiped out another 50% of God's power. After the death of God, war waged on, not interfaction war but civil war among the devils, which would later raise 4 devils to the thrones of their former leaders. On the other hand, Michael had been tasked with taking over the system of heaven until Naruto was ready to take over. After all, he was the heir to God. Rias Gremory was having a bad day. It began when she had sensed a strong power in the school that she had never noticed before. Some searching with a Kano would later show that the aura she was sensing was in fact the boosted gear, one of the 13 Longinus, known for its ability to boost the user's power every few seconds due to housing the Welsh dragon Diedrich. The boosted gear was a sacred gear with the power to defeat even the strongest of opponents with the right user. Naturally, Rias had been giddy with the idea of having the Red Dragon Emperor as a member of her peerage until she had discovered that the wielder of the sacred gear was none other than Issei Hyodo, member of the perverted trio. At first, she had been disappointed before Akano mentioned that she might be able to seduce Issei and convince him to fight for her against Riser to break off her engagement. This plan was well on its way until a new piece entered the board. A girl by the name of Yuma that had asked out Issei onto a date. Rias knew immediately that the girl was a fallen angel, but that didn't explain what she wanted with Issei. Thus was the reason why Rias sat perched on the roof of a nearby house. Watching the two on their date, it wasn't the most comfortable position, as while Rias wasn't tall, the constant squatting was tough on her long beautiful legs, not to mention the struggle of trying to stay balanced with her large breasts that seemed to have a mind of their own. And while she wasn't the most modest girl, she did not like having to pull down her short skirt every few minutes to avoid flashing everyone around her. While it disgusted her how easily the boy was being played, she couldn't help but notice how efficiently the fallen angel had wrapped him around her finger. From a female devil known for her seductive traits herself, it was interesting watching someone else warp a man to her needs. There was a small wave of energy as the fallen angel released her true form, changing from a cute schoolgirl to a taller, older fallen angel wearing very little, with other small leather straps blocking off her special places. She was every guy's wet dream rolled into one sexy girl with huge breasts. On the other hand, Rias scoffed, she would look so much better in that outfit. Rias prepared to dash forward as she watched the fallen angel form a pink light spear in her hand before it was thrown, piercing though Issei's chest like it was made of butter. Rias was about to appear in front of the boy and scare away the fallen angel before offering him the choice of being reincarnated when something very strange happened. Naruto groaned. It had been a while since he had been forced to use his wings. Heaven was rather easily accessible by teleporter and simple walking, so wings were often kept hidden. Nevertheless, his wings were a sight to behold. 10 pairs of wings that glowed gold in the afternoon light like the rays of the sun were attached to his back. Naruto barely had to flap them to keep in the air from his vantage point above the city. His wings, he had been told, were special as they were the only set of golden wings in heaven besides Michael Nissan, signifying that Naruto shared the title of Archangel with his older brother. Not only this, but Naruto was the only holy being since his father to have more than 12 wings, a sign of his future potential. One might wonder why one of the strongest angels in heaven was in the small little Kuo town. While the town was quite nice and modern, it wasn't really the biggest tourist attraction in all of Japan. It was, however, home to the greatest supernatural school in the human world. Since his birth, Naruto had been kept in heaven, sheltered and raised by his siblings the Seraphim. He had never really explored the world his father had fought for, thus it was the decision of his older brother Michael that Naruto be sent down to the human world. It would be nice for him to make friends with people his age for once, to learn the ways of the human world that he would one day look after when he was old enough. It was then decided by Michael, Gabriel, Uriel and Raphael that Naruto be sent to high school against his will. I swear Raphael did that just to piss me off, Naruto grumbled to himself. Watch who gets their wings dyed orange next. He watched the city with crossed arms, his eyes bored from the lack of excitement. Naruto was just about to call it a night when he sensed something. His head snapped to the right, his deep blue eyes searching like a hawk until he focused on a burst of energy in what appeared to be a park. Naruto disappeared in a flash of golden light, his golden wings launching him toward the park with so much speed. There was no sensation of movement, just a flash. He reappeared in front of the fallen angel with his hand out, a few inches from her face. He watched the woman's eyes widen in shock as he appeared before her, his hand glowing with white light. I do not know what your business here is, but killing a human on devil territory is grounds for war. I cannot let this remain unpunished. The fallen angel woman couldn't keep the surprise from her face at the sheer speed in which the man before her had, as well as the angelic powers he seemed to have. She didn't even have time to scream as blue fire erupted from Naruto's hand and engulfed her, burning her to ash instantly with the holy flames. Naruto closed his eyes in respect. May your soul rest in the underworld. He took a deep breath before breathing out, his prayer over. Amen. Naruto turned around, his golden blonde hair blowing in the wind as he turned to face the girl walking toward him. He was in the process of deciding whether he wanted to say something polite or funny when he actually noticed what she looked like, and for the first time in his life, he was speechless. She was beautiful, no other word could describe the way she looked. She was around his age, although she was shorter than him, only coming up to his chin. Her blue eyes were endless, slightly more green than his own in fact, and Naruto couldn't help but notice how flawless her body was, how it managed to make the old school uniform look like the finest piece of fashion in the world. She was curvy in all the right places, each step causing her chest to sway and skin to tease him, but it was her hair. He had never seen anything like it before. It was beautiful. He had never seen a red so deep, a crimson so passionate in his life. It was like rubies come to life, a river of blood rushing down her back. Naruto couldn't help but blush the minute he saw her. Sure, he had been in heaven and seen literal divine women, but this girl was something else. The girl wasn't faring much better. The boy in front of her was something else. Spiky hair that was more golden than blonde and bright blue eyes that almost glowed were his most prominent features, as well as the 3 whisker marks on each cheek he had. He was tall and muscular but also looked slim and agile, like a martial artist or a swimmer. He was wearing only a white button-down shirt with a tie that had a design of a red spiral on it and a pair of black dress pants, but somehow he still managed to look gorgeous in it. Naruto coughed into his hand, breaking her stare as he got his blush under control. Hi, my name's Naruto, I am new around here. I couldn't tell, Rias said with a smile, gesturing with her chin to the 10 pairs of angel wings on his back. Naruto scratched the back of his head awkwardly as the wings disappeared. Sorry, I am not really used to hiding them. His smile was contagious to the young devil heiress, but she managed to keep a straight face. It's okay, my name is Rias Gremory of the Gremory clan. She stuck out her hand. Nice to meet you. Naruto smiled and took the hand. Nice to meet you as well, Gremory-san. Naruto's insides felt like they turned to jelly the instant their hands touched, like there was a jolt of electricity between them. Naruto let go to avoid further embarrassment and looked down at Issei, who had finally bled out. He thrust a thumb out at the dead human. I am assuming you're going to want to resurrect this guy. Rias nodded and reached into her pocket for a pawn piece before showing the red piece to the teen. Yes, the boosted gear will be a great addition to my family. Michael Nissan did say it was one of the stronger Longinus, even if it isn't in the top 4. Naruto agreed. The two brothers had often discussed the sacred gears, especially the Longinus, as they were a huge mystery their father had left behind. They had also discussed the possibility of changing Heaven's system when Naruto was powerful enough so to disable the powerful Longinus in the Chaos Brigade. It was a daunting task, but it could be possible and necessary if Azazel's views of the future came true. Rias raised an eyebrow, her crimson hair moving in the evening breeze. What was that? Naruto blushed at the sight and smiled sheepishly. Oh, nothing, just talking to myself. The atmosphere changed slightly as Rias asked her next question. May I ask what a seraph-level angel is doing in the area? Seraphim were the most powerful forces in heaven, as they were all angels with at least 10 wings. It was due to the presence of the seraphim that heaven's forces had not been attacked in recent years, as angels were no longer being produced, which weakened their forces. Each of the seraphim were at the level of an ultimate level devil, with the 4 great seraphim being at Satan level at least. Michael the Archangel was on the level of Seerzex Lucifer and Ajuka Beelzebub, and many feared a clash between the 3 would destroy the underworld. She had never seen or heard of a seraph named Naruto, much less one with 20 golden wings. It interested her immensely. Joining the high school here, Naruto kept his smile up, trying to break the tension. Kuo Academy? Oh, I attend Kuo Academy. Rias kept her face neutral, but inside she was a little excited at the thought. We may have to meet up there. I would like that. Naruto grinned brightly. It was a very nice smile, Rias noticed. It almost glowed like the halo of an angel. Naruto's grin dropped slightly as he looked at the setting sun and cursed his luck. I cannot deny that I wish I could stay for longer, but I must go. Rias sighed. Very well. Naruto was about to leave when he remembered something his older siblings had said before he had left. Did you pack all of your stuff? The young woman checked over Naruto's outfit. Toothbrush? Underwear? She was Gabriel, Naruto's older sister and the most beautiful woman in heaven. She looked to be in her early 20s with long curly blonde hair, blue eyes that were lighter than her younger brother, and a very voluptuous figure. After their father had died, Gabriel and Michael had stepped in as his guardians when Naruto was a kid, while the rest of the seraphim were his older siblings. Naruto tried, and failed, to swat her hands away from his outfit. I thought you were my sister, not my mother. Don't talk back to your sister, Gabriel snapped as she sent Naruto to the ground, cradling his head. Naruto turned to his fellow golden-winged angel and mouthed the word, save me. Michael was handsome with his long blonde hair and bright green eyes. He was tall like his brothers and muscular under the robes he always wore. He always seemed to have a sad expression on his face regardless of what was going on. Today, however, the leader of heaven had an amused smile on his face. Gabriel, leave him be. He should be prepared to live by himself one day without his doting older sister hovering over him, Michael said with a sigh, sparing the boy from further torture. The Archangel did not spare Naruto from own teasing as he lifted up a small bottle. Nevertheless, he should try to remember his wing cleaner instead of leaving under the bed with those videos of his. Hey. It's not my fault I like watching the Devil's rating games. Naruto blushed as he grabbed the bottle. They're cool and we don't have anything like them. Besides, I get to scope out the competition, Naruto whispered under his breath, but Raphael caught it. Raphael was the gruff older brother that all siblings tended to have. He was one of the largest among them and very muscular, a giant of an angel. He and Naruto were the only ones who had inherited God's super strength, but Raphael was easily 5 times the user of the skill Naruto was. Naruto had seen his brother launch a chopstick through a concrete wall and hit a fly's wings. Raphael shared the same green eyes with his older brother as well as the blonde hair he and his siblings all had, although his hair was styled in a buzzcut. Raphael scoffed. You're at least on the level of an ultimate level devil if not the Satans. I doubt you're gonna lose to a bunch of young devils with their little reincarnated brats running around. People say that but they doubt the power of friendship and teamwork. Naruto responded with a smirk. People working together can topple the most mighty of foes. Uriel rolled his eyes. Michael, he sounds like Dad. Uriel was the youngest of the 4 great seraphs and had shoulder-length blonde hair and light blue eyes like Gabriel. Uriel was the first to inherit God's divine blue flames that either burned the sin out of his opponents or fried them with the heat of the sun. Fight me. Naruto gestured at Uriel with his fingers in the come hither motion. You're just mad I have stronger holy flames than you. Uriel raised an eyebrow at the challenge. Square up, golden boy. Break it up, children. Michael stepped forward and broke up before anything could happen between the two. Naruto has to leave now if he wants to be in Japan by sundown. Gabriel stepped forward and gave Naruto a big hug, a single tear falling down her face. Don't forget to eat your vegetables and don't eat too much ramen. Brush your teeth twice a day and make sure to clean your wings. You don't want them to get so dirty you start looking like a fallen angel. Oh, and don't get tossed around by girls. Stand up for yourself and don't let their feminine charm wow you, she said as she buried her face into her younger brother's shoulder. But if you do find a nice girl, hold on to her if you can. Well, at least until I get to inspect her and beat her up if she's not good enough. Naruto groaned. Gabriel Nichan. Gabriel shrugged. Hey, I am just saying. Not all the whores down there are good enough for my little brother. Naruto smiled and wrapped his sister in a tight hug. I love you. I love you too, Gabriel said as she stepped back, wiping the last of her tears from her face. Uriel was the next to step forward and gave Naruto a brotherly hug. Stay safe, little brother. We'll hold down the fort for you up here. Naruto nodded as Uriel stepped back and Raphael stepped forward. The next time I see you, little bro, you better be stronger, Raphael said. Be careful. The last person was his older brother Michael. Michael and Naruto had always been close, with Michael always being a role model to his younger brother. Naruto had always wanted to be like his brother, kind but strong. Stay safe, my brother. Michael wrapped Naruto in a hug. There are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophies. You and your poetry, Michael Nissan. Naruto smiled despite the comment. Thank you. You're welcome, Michael said as he stepped back. Naruto nodded and stepped away, his wings unfolding behind him. I'll see you all soon. With a flap, he was gone. It would be the first time he was on his own without his family. It should be calm and quiet. No hussies, Naruto-kun. Don't forget. Naruto sighed. Nothing was ever quiet when Gabriel was your older sister. Naruto paused and considered what Gabriel had said. He was sure she wasn't thinking he would find someone so soon, but he wanted to give it a try. Naruto turned around and stared Rias in the eyes. The crimson-haired girl, surprised by the sudden change. This was the first time he was going to do this, and it was even weirder considering the girl was a member of the enemy faction, but still, there was something about this girl that was different, that was special. Will you be able to grace me with your company this Saturday? Naruto asked with slightly red cheeks, still a little shy. I would love a tour of this lovely town. Rias blushed the same color as her hair for a second before she coughed into her hand to get herself under control. I would like that. Naruto grinned was brighter than the morning sun. I will look forward to it, Gremory-san. Rias, the Gremory heiress, said as she brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. Call me Rias. Naruto's smile somehow got brighter. It's been a pleasure, Rias-chan. It was with that his golden wings appeared with a flash of light and a sound similar to a thunderclap. With a single flap, he was gone like a golden comet through the evening sky. It was a lovely sight, something one saw before they turned to the heavens and said a small prayer. The pleasure is all mine, Naruto-kun. Rias smiled brightly before licking her lips. All mine. Her eyes turned down to the boosted gear wielder next to her, and suddenly a new, much better plan appeared in her head. Rias pulled out the pawn piece. Get up, you pervert. It was the last stop of the night and one he had been looking forward to the least. If he messed up this meeting in any way, he would be attacked by an ultimate class devil as well as the entire Kyoto Yukai clan. Naruto appeared on top of the old hospital so fast, he looked like a yellow flash. It was one of the reasons for his nickname up in heaven, Kuroi Senku. They had chosen the hospital as it was in Yukai territory, which eased their leader and worst case scenario, and there was a battle. The person who lost would have someone to stay. Neither said it, but both were thinking the same thing. About time you showed up, a soft voice said from behind him. I thought you stood up, the leader of the Kyoto Yukai. Naruto turned around to face the person he was meeting. He had not expected her to be so beautiful. Long blonde hair that went to her waist matched the bright gold eyes she had. Her face was slender and delicate, which made a gorgeous image when matched with her fierce eyes and expression. She was very voluptuous, which somehow became even more apparent with her shrine maiden outfit. Naruto bowed to the Kyuubi. I am sorry, Yusaka-sama. There was a minor delay in my schedule. Yusaka nodded. Very well. What did you request this meeting for? Many years ago, Naruto explained after taking a deep breath. My father fought the being known as Trihexa. The temperature dropped a few degrees and Yusaka growled, her eyes glowing red for a second. Why do you come to my territory and speak that forbidden name? In order to contain the power the being held, my father sealed parts of the being's power into the 9 animal companions that had aided him in its defeat, Naruto continued, unfrightened by the Cubist rage. Yusaka slowly calmed down as Naruto continued his story. His companions were Shukaku of the Tanuki clan, Matabi of the Bakaneko clan, Isobu of the Sea Turtle clan, Son Goku of the Golden-Eyed Monkey clan, Kakuo of the Horse clan, Seiken of the Slug clan, Chomei of the Beetle clan, Gyuki of the Ushi Oni clan. Naruto paused, and Kurama of the Kitsune clan. Yusaka gasped. Kurama was the former leader of the Kyoto Yukai. He was easily one of, if not the, strongest Yukai in the world before he disappeared many decades ago. He was also Yusaka's father. Each was implanted with pieces of Trihex's power, with some receiving more than others. Naruto explained with a sigh, your father received the most. My father thought that after he died, no one would be able to stop Kurama if he went on a rampage, so he was forced to seal him into a sacred gear, just as he did with the 2 heavenly dragons, Naruto said, finishing his story. It was a valid concern. Kurama had been called the strongest Kyuubi in history back in his day, on par with the Saiyans of his time. Trihexa was a being known to be on the level of Great Red, a being beyond infinity. Combine the two and you had a being on the same level as the 2 heavenly dragons. It had taken God, the 4 Satans and Azazel to defeat the 2 rampaging dragons when they had fought. Naruto placed his hands together and grinned his bright grin, his canines elongating. Roar for me, Kurama. There was a release of gold and red energy from Naruto that forced Yusaka to cover her eyes in protection. It was an overwhelming amount of power, like a tidal wave that washed you away with it. It practically shook the ground with its sheer pressure, and Yusaka could feel the air around her heat up. When she looked again, Naruto had gained a new addition to his outfit. A piece of ornate golden armor now covered his chest, radiating energy of at least an ultimate level devil by itself while it was in rest. Each of the shoulder guards was in the shape of a golden fox roaring, while the chest plate was decorated with designs of swirls and hurricanes. From the shoulders sprouted a white cape that flowed behind the angel, a design with Magatama and a torii. Naruto's stomach was left uncovered, showing a black swirl design or tattoo on it, showing the partnership he shared with the Kyuubi with proudness. It's been a long time, daughter. A deep, almost demonic face rung out from the armor that Yusaka recognized instantly. You've grown. Father. Yusaka brought her hand to her face to wipe away a few tears. I thought you had died. I am indeed alive, Kurama admitted. Life in this gear has been interesting. Do you wish for me to break you out? Yusaka asked. Naruto tensed. Although he and Kurama got along well, the fox was still unpredictable, and so was his daughter. Naruto was afraid Yusaka could misinterpret a word her father said and would attack him without warning. No, Kurama said after a small pause. I am happy with this host. He and I are partners, as he would often say. Very well. Yusaka turned to Naruto and looked him over with a new, less suspicious light. Thank you for allowing me to hear from my father, Naruto-san. You are welcome. Naruto smiled. I know what it's like to miss your father. Please come back to Kyoto another time. I would love to have you as a guest, Yusaka said with a small bow. I am sure Kuno would like to hear from her grandfather. Of course, Yusaka-sama, Naruto said with his own bow before his wings appeared in a flash of golden light and he disappeared. So proper. Yusaka smiled before licking her lips at the thought. This can be fun. Life in Japan would be very interesting for the young angel, to say the least. Naruto groaned as he woke up the next day, the sun in his eyes. A single open eye noticed that a beam of eye-burning sunlight had somehow managed to get through 2 curtains and hit him in the face at an impossible angle. I get it, Michael. Naruto groaned as he literally rolled out of bed. I have to wake up. He had used some of the church's money to buy a nice home in the middle of the town in which he could live while he attended Kuo Academy. It wasn't fancy. A few bedrooms with a pretty large kitchen. A must, as he was still trying to figure out Gabriel's ramen recipe. It was, no pun intended, heavenly. A nice-sized living room, a studio, an office and 3 bathrooms. The house also held a library for Bibles and other texts as well as a decent-sized armory of weapons and armor. It was nothing too extravagant but still functional for himself and any guests he had over. Naruto managed to drag himself to the master bathroom, his hand lazily scratching his head as he began his morning routine. Brush his teeth, wash his face, go to the kitchen and make breakfast, say hi to Rias laying naked on the couch, pick out his clothes for the next. Wait. Rias laying on the couch? Rias! Naruto yelled in surprise, a blush on his face as he hid his body behind the door. On the couch, Rias woke up from her sleep gently despite Naruto's loud exclamation, with a small yawn escaping her lips. Naruto tried to avert his eyes but the image would forever be ingrained in his head, the way her hair fell down her back, resting on her perky chest that bounced with every movement, up, down, a jiggle to the right. Good morning Naruto-kun. Rias rubbed her eyes with her hand as she sat up, breaking Naruto's focus. Did you sleep well? Yes, in fact, but that's not the point. Why are you in my house? Naruto asked. Snapping himself out of the hypnotic spell the girl had entranced him with, he quickly raced to his closet, covering himself as he did so as to avoid the girl seeing his arousal. He grabbed one of the white button-down shirts he often wore and handed it to Rias. The red-haired girl smiled as she slipped it on with a little difficulty, her large chest straining against the tight shirt. Naruto couldn't help but notice that she looked adorable sitting there with his shirt on. Rias patted the spot next to her on the couch with her warm smile. Come here, darling. Okay. Naruto mumbled. He sat down next to her and immediately Rias latched onto his arm, holding it tightly against her chest in a rather possessive and admittedly cute way. She wants the D, the voice in Naruto's head pointed out. Naruto wanted to groan. This was not the time for the sarcastic fox in his body to start talking. Good morning Kurama, Naruto responded, but you're not helping. Hee hee. Kurama giggled as he stopped talking and instead began to watch. Kurama and Naruto were weird friends. While neither had asked for Kurama to be sealed inside of them, they had slowly come to terms with it. Sure, Kurama had been aggressive and angry at the beginning, but perhaps the nine-tailed fox realized that it was nice to have company if you were to be sealed away. Naruto strained to get control of his body before he did something rash and focused his eyes on Ria's face as the girl began to speak. After I took Issei home, I sent my queen to go sleep with him. Naruto raised a disapproving eyebrow, not in a sexual manner, just sleep with him to heal the injuries he had suffered in battle. But how does that relate to you breaking into my house and sleeping on my couch naked? Naruto asked as he tried to shrug on his pants with a little difficulty. Fucking bone. I didn't sleep on the couch for most of the night, silly, Rias said with a roll of her eyes like Naruto was being an idiot. I slept with you. Naruto looked up at the girl with a dropped jaw. Wait, what? Gabriel was going to kill him. This is great. Kurama was practically rolling on the floor laughing. My baby little warden finally grew up. Naruto was less amused and more terrified for his life. Fuck off fuzzball. Kurama snickered. I'd say bite me, but that girl probably already did that. You. After I met with my queen, I tried to find you only to find that you were in Yukai territory, Rias explained, unaware of the banter within the angel in front of her's head, so I waited until you got home and broke into your house and laid down next to you when you fell asleep. Naruto couldn't help but look shocked. If any other girl besides Rias Gremory had broke into his house, they would have been knocked and escorted out of his house, but it was Rias Gremory. He didn't care, she was practically the princess of all the devils. He couldn't help but be hopelessly drawn to her. She was just that special. He loved how sunlight made her hair shine like the most expensive rubies and her eyes were the color of the most beautiful water. She was mysterious and seductive and confusing and kind and ruthless at the same time. She was interesting. He didn't know quite what it all meant, but he kind of liked it. You're crazy, Naruto sighed, not betraying the nature of his thoughts. But how did you end up on the couch? I woke up about 2 hours ago to go get a glass of water, Rias explained, her face scrunched up in confusion, and when I came back, there was a light barrier around the door. Naruto raised an eyebrow, his face paling. A light barrier? He had an idea of who put it up. He sat down on the couch next to Rias, who leaned her head on his shoulder. I also could have sworn I heard a woman say you're not getting near Naruto-kun again, you hussy, Rias said, flipping her hair in annoyance. She was not a hussy, thank you very much. Besides, she didn't break into Naruto's house just to seduce him. Oni-sama. The man sitting at the desk almost shot out of his desk in surprise as a red magic circle appeared in front of him. He was tall and slim with long red hair and sea green eyes. Pretty much he was an older male version of Rias Gremory. There was a reason for that. He was Searzek's Lucifer, formerly Searzek's Gremory and the Lucifer of the 4 great Satans, as well as the older brother of Rias Gremory. He was the strongest man in the underworld, his control over pure destruction more comparable to gods than normal devils. The Mont's eyes lit up like the 4th of July as he saw his sister, Raitan. Sirzek's was also a huge cis-con. A gray-haired woman standing off-screen reached over and swatted Sirzek's across his head. Be professional. Grafia-chan. You're supposed to be my wife. Stop hitting ow. I am on the job. Rias could only sigh and watch the scene unfold. It was always like this. Sirzek's. Rias cut in once the violence was too much for her to bear to see. I have to talk to you about something. The atmosphere changed immediately and Sirzek's expression became serious. What happened? Has someone hurt you? No, it's just something. Rias paused. Someone new has appeared in Kuo. Sirzek's raised an eyebrow as Grafia left with a bow. Who? He calls himself Naruto and he's an angel. Rias hesitated. A 20-winged angel with golden wings. Instead of her brother growing aggressive or protective, Rias was surprised when Sirzek's put his face into his hands and groaned. This changes everything if he's in Kuo. You know him? Rias said in surprise. Sirzek's nodded slightly. We've met once but he has kept to himself in heaven so we never really interacted. Ajuka and I once went to meet with Michael over the increasing numbers of fallen. Sirzek's explained with a bit of difficulty. The two of us could have overpowered him if something were to go wrong. Rias understood the politics going on, while the angels and devils were archenemies. They shared a common foe in the form of the fallen angels and an increasing number of fallen could result in a shift in power. Nevertheless, Ajuka and Sirzek's were the leaders of hell and would never enter enemy territory or in this case heaven without each other as backup. While Michael was super devil level, he was the only seraphim known to be at that level and would fall in open combat between the devil god of destruction and the devil god of control. But he brought backup in the form of a 15-year-old blonde boy. Sirzek's continued with a heavy face. It was only after I accidentally said something offensive to God that I realized why the boy had been brought. Sirzek's shook his head, his face a little pale. He was 15 but he was outputting the power of a Satan without his sacred gear. The fact there is an angel with a sacred gear in the first place is alarming. Sirzek's sighed. Ajuka even went on to compare it to a Longinus, which is even more terrifying. At this point Rias was terrified from her brothers, the strongest person she knew. Reaction. You sound afraid of him. I am not afraid to fight him. I doubt he is at my level just yet. Sirzek's shook his head slowly. I am afraid of what he could become once he gets older. I could probably count on one hand the number of people not on the top 10 list that could beat him or give him a good fight. Sirzek's tried to keep a neutral face but a little bit of worry peeked through. Imagine when he reaches his prime or even worse, in a few decades. He might reach the level of his father or higher one day, and with that Sirzek's practically shivered. From the leader of the opposing faction to the one that boy will one day run, Sirzek's explained, that scares me. Just who is he? Rias asked, slightly worried for her and her peerage's safety. Michael called him the son of God, Sirzek's said, like it explained everything. But aren't all the seraphim the children of God? Rias said, a bit of confusion evident in her voice. Sirzek's shook his head, he meant it much more literally. While I don't distrust him as I doubt any of his direct children will hurt someone in cold blood, Sirzek said with cold eyes, be careful. If that boy gets angry, Sirzek stated, he could destroy continents with ease. Gone was the bubbly Lucifer that dressed up with his wife and friends and would smother his sister with affection. This was Sirzek's Lucifer, the man who had vaporized a battlefield during the war to protect his friends, and had climbed to heaven itself and pull it down if someone harmed his family. Sirzek's eyes were cold, the color of a tidal wave about to destroy an entire shoreline. I don't want anything to happen to my little sister. Rias had decided to take this warning as permission to get information on her enemy, and the phrase is keep your friends close and your possible enemies that are also incredibly hot in your bed. At least that was the one Rias remembered. I can't deal with Gabriel. Naruto groaned into his hands, still on the embarrassment his sister was causing him. It's like having a helicopter mother. Naruto sighed and brushed Rias' crimson hair out of his face with his hand. You can keep my shirt if you want. Rias smiled, cuddling deeper into Naruto's shoulder. Shall we go to school now? Naruto blushed at the soft feeling pressed against his arm. After you. She's broke him already, Kurama mumbled with an amused smirk. This should be fun to watch. You're such a gentleman, Rias said with a much more mischievous smile as she brought her face very, very close to his. I like that. With that Rias stood up and began to walk away with a very knowing sway of his hips that Naruto followed like a man hypnotized. It was only after the devil princess had left the room that he released what she had said. Thank you? Who's the hot guy? Why is he next to Rias senpai? Are they dating? Naruto groaned. Is it always like this? It was his first day at Kuo Academy and he had barely stepped through the gate when the rumors began to spread like wildfire. The school was quite pretty, in fact, with an almost gothic look, but the worst part was the uniform. Rias had practically tied him down to put on the stupid monkey suit. Not that it looked bad on him. The blazer made his broad shoulders and muscular chest even more pronounced, whereas the rest of the black in the outfit made his rare golden hair and blue eyes pop. Immediately the student population seemed to notice the newcomer with his literal angelic features and a hint of roguishness that made all the girls' heads turn, even causing one of them to walk into a tree in her distracted state. The next thing they realized was how perfectly he matched with the sexy and seductive Rias Gremory, the two looking like a perfect power couple. Anyone that knew of the supernatural side could not help but notice how the two reminded them of Rias' older brother and his wife for some reason. Rias giggled into her hand. Just about. Naruto was about to comment when he noticed a new person enter the courtyard and Naruto couldn't help but look at her, not for the reason you would think too. She was a beautiful young woman with a very voluptuous figure around the same age as Rias, with very long black hair and violet eyes. Her hair was tied in a long ponytail, reaching all the way down to her legs with two strands sticking out from the top and sloping backwards, with an orange ribbon keeping it in place. Like most of the girls at Kuo Academy, she wears the customary Kuo Academy girls' school uniform, along with black knee-high socks. But instead of staring at her quite awe-inspiring chest and gorgeous legs, Naruto couldn't help but notice how beautiful her hair was. It was elegant and beautiful, like a stream of obsidian down her back. With a sexy strut with a sway of her hips, the girl walked straight to where Naruto and Rias were sitting on a bench and placed the tip of her finger on his chest, drawing small circles on it with a lick of her lips. "Oh, is this your sexy new boy toy?" the girl asked, her beautiful violet eyes meeting Naruto's bright blue. "I get why you left me the old one." "She wants the D too," Kurama pointed out with that same freaking amused smirk that annoyed his partner so much. This kept getting better and better to watch. "I despise you with a passion. You love me. I would sell you to Sears X Lucifer for a corn chip." Meanwhile, Ria's hair was practically floating with her anger as she glared at the girl in front of her. "Akeno. Would you like a threesome with the two of us?" the newly named Akeno asked, pressing her body tightly against his. Almost painfully slow, Akeno leaned forward and whispered into Naruto's ear, "I'll blow your mind." Akeno. Ria's hair had managed to separate itself into 9 strands that flowed like tails as she roared at her queen, "Go away." Akeno giggled into her hands before listening to her king's orders, but not before giving Naruto a sexy wink and walking away with a very, very, very sexy sway of her hips. Rias noticed the bright blush on Naruto's face and scowled, pulling Naruto's tightly to his chest to win his affection back. "I am sorry about her," Rias apologized, making sure Naruto's eyes were on her only. "She's very, Akeno." "It's okay." Naruto scratched the back of his head with the hand that hadn't been claimed by Rias. "She seems nice if not a bit strange." Naruto nodded as he noticed another person walking toward them. He was of average height and build with brown hair and brown eyes that were looking straight at Rias' chest, which Naruto was not pleased about. He didn't know why though. The teen blushed and smiled awkwardly at the most beautiful girl in the school, Bucko. "Ah, Issei-kun." Rias smiled at her pawn. "How are you feeling?" Issei scratched the back of his head awkwardly. "I am feeling just fine, Bucko. This is our other new member to the club." Rias gestured toward Naruto next to her. "Issei, meet Naruto." Naruto turned his head so fast to look at Rias, she could have sworn he got whiplash. "What? Since when did I agree to that?" "Whipped. I hate you." Issei was worried over a much different reason. "Ah, first Kiba and now you. How am I going to get any boobs now?" "You'll be fine." Issei. Naruto smiled in a way that was eerily similar to another archangel. "I am sure you'll find a great girl." It was then Issei remembered the kind of individuals in the occult research club and almost shivered in realization at the kind of bring the man in front of him was. "Wait, are you a?" Issei looked side to side for anyone listening in and moved closer. "Devil too?" "Nope." Naruto smiled at Issei's confused look before he noticed the time. "I have to go to class, Kahai." With a gentlemanly offering of his hand, Naruto stood up and turned to the red-haired beauty. "Shall we go, Rias?" "Of course," Rias said. She smiled her usual radiant smile as she took Naruto's arm and hugged it close to her body as they walked to class, giving Issei a small wave as they left. "Ah, Bucko." Issei groaned at the sight. How was he ever going to get Rias' beautiful rack now? Issei was shocked out of his thoughts by the sound of the morning bell, signaling he was about to be late to class. "Welcome to the first joint meeting of the Occult Research Club and the Student Council," the woman at the front of the room said with a neutral look on her face. They were in the old school building, which was slightly more full than it usually was. 2 days or so had passed since Naruto's first day at Kuo Academy. Things had been rather easy going since then, with the only difficulty being the persistent rumors that Naruto and Rias were dating. Which, while they weren't baseless, as the two teens were practically living together, but they were quite annoying after the first few hours. That, along with the constant waves of people that seemed to be slobbering over Naruto and Rias at every turn, was beginning to get on his nerves. The room was full of a slight tension as most of both peerages sat across from each other on the couches while Naruto and the other 4 girls that appeared to be in charge stood. Rias nodded and clapped her hands to gather everyone's attention. Let's go around and introduce ourselves. The red-haired beauty gave a small bow. I am Rias Gremory, heiress of the Gremory clan and high-class devil. Sona Citri, heiress of the Citri clan and high-class devil, said the girl that spoke first. Sona was a young bespectacled woman in her late teens with a slim figure, black hair styled in a short bob cut and violet eyes. She, along with the rest of the girls in the room, were wearing the Kuo Academy uniform. Naruto was less worried about her appearance and more about the fact the girl was staring directly at him with a calculating coldness that amused him slightly. Sure, Michael and Gabriel had raised him to be kind and diplomatic, but Kurama and Rachel's had influenced over his developing years to crave battles and enjoy strategy. This girl screamed strategy, and that amused him. This would be fun. Unaware of Naruto's thinking, Akeno smiled warmly from her position next to Rias. Akeno Himejima, Rias Gremory's queen. Tsubaki, the girl standing next Sona, said with a small nod. Tsubaki was a young bespectacled woman with long straight black hair that extends all the way down to her knees, with split bangs and heterochromic eyes, with a violet left eye and a light brown right eye. She, like her president, seemed very professional and neutral. Kiba Yuto, Rias-sama's knight, the blonde-haired teen in Rias' peerage, said with a polite smile. Through their limited reaction, Kiba was one of the few people Naruto had met that reminded him of the angels from home. He was kind, incredibly polite and blonde, the quintessential angel. Perhaps it was the artificial holy affinity that Naruto sensed within him that affected him so. A small white-haired Nekosho sitting at the end gave a stone-faced nod. Kaneko, Rias Rook. Saji Genshuru, Sona's pawn, the teen next to Sona, said with a scratch of his head. Saji was a young man with short blonde hair and gray eyes. He was wearing the Kuo Academy boys' school uniform, albeit without the blazer, and his sleeves are rolled up. Naruto did notice something off about the boy, however. He's in love with his master, Kurama pointed out. Naruto mentally shook his head. No, not that. He also houses Vritra in his sacred gears, Kurama said. The 9-tailed fox wanted to roll his eyes at his container's facepalm for not realizing it. The brown-haired perverted boy from the other day with a slightly scared look on his face was the next to speak up. Issei Hyodo, Rias' pawn. Naruto honestly felt bad for the young teen. He was weak and ignorant in a world where strength and knowledge was the only thing that kept you alive. Perhaps if the boy stopped perving on Rias, then they could be good friends. Naruto raised an amused smile. You haven't told him yet? Haven't told me what? Issei said with a confused look on his face. Go ahead. Maybe it'll unlock faster this way, Rias said with a small shrug while Akeno giggled into her hand. Sona's eyes narrowed at Naruto's comment. Naruto looked at the boy with amused blue eyes. You're the wielder of the Longinus known as the boosted gear. What does that mean? Issei asked with a confused look on his face. The amused look never left Naruto's face as he placed his hand glowing with white energy on Issei's wrist. Diedrich. There was a split-second pause before a wave of red energy ripped through the room, forcing Naruto to let go despite the smile on his face. Almost everyone in the room was forced to cover their eyes from the bright light and heat radiating off of the young brown-haired, like the final battle cry of a dying warrior. The guttural roar of a dragon ripped through the room, making things all around them begin to shake from the force. It was then the red dragon gauntlet appeared. The boosted gear took the appearance of a red gauntlet with a green jewel and 2 golden spikes that appeared on Issei's forearm. Fuck you. A deep voice from within the gauntlet said, surprising its wearer, who could only watch in shock. That's not nice, Naruto said with a smile. While he doubted he could defeat the true Diedrich when he was unsealed, Naruto knew that by pushing the Welsh dragon, then maybe it would release more power into Issei. The more power Issei had, then the more likely Rias would be safe when Naruto wasn't always there. Plus, it was the fox in him that loved messing with incredibly powerful beings. The Welsh dragon snorted. You are not your father. You may have his energy signature, but you have no authority over me. Then why are you the one locked in a box and I am the only one who could even get close to unlocking you? Naruto said with an amused smirk. The others in the room were still a bit in shock from watching a Longinus being released in front of them and Naruto just arguing with it without any fear of the consequences. Diedrich growled, "Damn you, Gold Fox Emperor." Rias was the first to break out of her stupor and step between Naruto and the gauntlet. "Try not to aggravate one of the heavenly dragons, Naruto-kun." Sadly, not everything ever went smoothly in Rias Gremory's life as Diedrich decided to speak up at that moment. "She's attractive, you should try to tap that Issei." Naruto whipped around with red eyes that glared straight into Issei's soul as anger radiated off of him. "Touch her and I will personally roast your teriyaki chicken ass." "Fuck him up next time you get a chance," Kurama mumbled, his own tail swishing with anger. "Arrogant dragon." Tsubaki stepped forward from her position. "Who are you exactly? Another new member of Rias-sama's peerage?" "My name is Naruto and I am an angel," Naruto introduced himself, his golden wings falling to his side as proof. "He's an archangel," Kiba mumbled under his breath in surprise. The rest of the room was in similar shock. Archangel was the highest ranking for angels, above even the elite seraphim, and were separated from the rest due to their golden wings. "There is only one archangel and I have met Michael," Sona said with a cold expression on her face. "You are not him." "Very astute, wise girl," Naruto said with his own calculating smile. "I let my big brother take over the political stuff, it's boring." Sona's stare was as cold as her sister's ice. "Why are you here then? Are you here to destroy us?" The temperature in the room seemed to go up from the tension before it dropped suddenly, and Naruto scratched the back of his head sheepishly with a warm smile. "I am just here to enjoy life and discover the joys of my father's creations, don't worry." Sona glared for a few more seconds before her face softened slightly. "Very well, but let it be known that my sister is Seraphal Leviathan and any action taken against me by you or your people will be dealt with accordingly." "I am not afraid of your sister, young Citri," Naruto responded with the same smile, his coldness hidden underneath, "but I have already said the purpose of my visit." Naruto shrugged his shoulders. "I just wanted to get away from my family and in turn, Michael and the other seraphs sent me down to high school, that's all." His smile was like the sun's rays and everyone in the room felt so warm all of a sudden. "I hope we can all be friends." Rias stepped forward between Naruto and Sona to stop any more awkward stare-downs as well as to take control of the meeting once more. This meeting was called to discuss the attack on a human by a fallen angel earlier this week as well as the increasing numbers of fallen in Kuo town. Her face was solemn as the heiress she was raised to be came out. "My newest pawn Issei Hyodo was killed by a fallen angel who was after his sacred gear. Not only does this show that the fallen angels are growing more brave and are taking actions against humans, but they are also targeting sacred gears," Akeno explained to the group, causing the slightly confused Issei and Saji to nod in understanding. Naruto nodded in agreement. "Azazel also was a bit obsessed with my father's creations." "Whatever happened to this fallen angel? The one that attacked Mr. Hyodo?" Tsubaki asked with a concerned look. Rias' face revealed nothing. "Naruto destroyed them." The room was silent, causing Naruto to sigh and step forward. "The fallen angel problem is part of the reason I am here. Michael has asked me to find and interrogate any fallen angels interfering in the human world and discover if they are working for Azazel or going rogue. If they're working for the leader of all fallen angel, then these attacks could be seen as offensive attacks on the other factions in the human world," Naruto explained with a face that reminded Rias of her brother when he was in his general mode. Rias couldn't help but notice a lot of similarities between Naruto and her brother. Both were incredibly powerful but also goofy and kind most of the time. They both shared a hidden seriousness as well as a deep caring for the ones they love. It made Rias wonder what would happen when she brought Naruto home to meet Sirzex. You know, as a friend, not as anything more. She couldn't care him as anything more than a friend, right? It was against the ways of the world. It was because of her thoughts that she almost missed Sona begin to close up the meeting. I think that concludes the first joint meeting of the Occult Research Club and the Student Council. Everyone be careful, Rias added with she crossed her arms. There are more dangers than one would expect in the world. There was a moment of silence as no one moved, everyone memorizing each other's faces just in case something were to go wrong and they would never see each other again. It was with that people began to get ready to leave. Naruto's golden wings unfolded themselves once more, the gold refracting the dim lighting in the room. "I am going to run a check around the city before I am heading home." Naruto turned to the club president and reached into his back pocket, fishing out a small bronze key which he placed into Ria's hand. "Here's a key if you want into my house. I don't really want you to have to break in every time." "Ladies, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure," Naruto said with a nod of his head before he disappeared with a flap of his wings. "He's so nice," Rias mumbled under her breath, her face slightly red. she turned away from people's staring eyes and walked away, dismissing her peerage for the night. Akeno was about to leave when Sona stopped her with a raised hand, her violet eyes cold. "Keep an eye on him, I don't want him to just be using her." "Of course Sona-san," Akeno said with a small giggle. Her own violet eyes twinkled with amusement and lust. "This Naruto, he interests me." Gabriel had once asked him when he was younger what animal he was like, while his immediate reaction was to say a fox due to his mischievous nature and the fact he literally housed a kitsune in his body. Part of him also felt drawn to dragons, perhaps it was the pure eternal power they held as they watched over the rest of the world. His wings made a slow repetitive thump-thump with every flap, the 20 golden wings outstretched behind like rays of sunlight. His blue eyes watched over the city like an eagle, meanwhile stretching his senses to detect any disturbances. It wasn't the most interesting thing, but patience was something he had a lot of. Gabriel and her damn baking. This also gave him time to think about how he felt for Rias Gremory. It was confusing and amazing all at the same time. She made him feel confused and amazing at the same time. She was practically the princess of the devils, younger sister to Lucifer as well as the next heiress to the Gremory family. He was the son of God and the heir to heaven's system. They weren't supposed to. He didn't know what they were supposed to. It just wasn't natural. He could also guess the amount of backlash from this if it came out. He did not want a devil god of destruction knocking on heaven's door. It could spark a new great war. It terrified him, but there was something about her that made him want to try. There was something that just made them click. He needed some time to think, get to know her better before he made any rash decisions. Naruto was about to pack it up for the night when he felt something. It wasn't holy, but it wasn't demonic either. It felt almost like a sacred gear. Naruto mumbled under his breath. Naruto couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu when he heard the scream of a young woman in peril. Issei wasn't a young woman, but Naruto digressed. He disappeared in a streak of gold with the holy speed his wings provided him, reappearing on the other side of town in an instant. He noticed the place was an abandoned church, one that had been worn and destroyed over the decades by vandals in the elements. Through the boarded windows that a girl's cries of pain could be heard just slightly. "No one hurts a maiden," Naruto mumbled under his breath. It was a mantra that Gabriel often repeated, even going as far as to personally take care of any exorcist that believed they had the Lord's backing on everything they did. Those exorcists didn't really think anything like that ever again. They didn't think about anything after that. Naruto took a deep breath before stepping in front of the large wooden double doors of the church. He closed his eyes and placed his palms together, a silent prayer leaving his lips. Naruto never entered a church without a prayer. Amen. As soon as the word left his lips, his eyes shot open to reveal red eyes with slitted fox pupils that glowed with fury. Roar. Kurama mumbled under his breath as the shoulder armor materialized into existence. Naruto's body began cloaked in red bubbling energy as he brought back his fist. The angel let out a piercing roar as his hand shot forward, the Kyuubi's energy behind the attack augmenting the already earth-shattering strike. There was a bang and suddenly the door was gone, a shower of sawdust the only reminder. There was a cry of alarm and Naruto felt at least a dozen fallen angels on the walls ready to pounce on him. None were worth his time as he was focusing on the young girl in the center of the altar. She was younger than him, maybe a second year, and had long blonde hair that was almost as gold as his own. Her skin was fair and her eyes were a bright green that looked broken. Her arms were connected to the walls behind her by glowing green chains that made her wince in pain every few seconds. It made his blood boil. His golden wings sprouted to their full glorious length, instantly engulfing the room in blazing holy light and forcing all the fallen angels to avert their eyes in both pain and betrayal. They all recognized the light of the one they had once abandoned for their sins. Meanwhile, the girl at the altar looked up for the first time, the pain leaving her body and a small weak smile on her face. He was real. Naruto appeared in front of a bunch of fallen in a flash of gold, the orange energy forming two claw-like arms from his back. No matter how hard they tried, the two-winged fallen angels could not break free of the grip those hands had on them. It didn't take long for them to pop like soda cans. A two-winged fallen angel pointed a light spear at Naruto. "Kill him." This seemed to be another of a rallying call for the rogue group as the room became engulfed in the rainbow light of these few dozen light spears. There was a pause before Naruto began to laugh. Pathetic. He clapped his hands together like a prayer. Dance of the Kitsune, holy foxfire. There was a sound like a roar as Naruto's body became engulfed in red and white flames that made his body glow with heat. It only took a few moments for the flames to shape themselves into a giant fox almost 15 feet tall, each swing of its tails threatening to set the ceiling on fire. The heat that rolled over it was visible and the fallen angels could only look in horror as they stared into the red eyes of the Kitsune. The world seemed to pause for a second before the Kitsune suddenly pounced. ripping the angels to fiery shreds in moments. This allowed for Naruto to focus on the last fallen angel, a puny little four-wing that looked in charge of this rogue group. Naruto managed a sneer before he disappeared, reappearing with his hand wrapped around this black-winged angel's face as he slammed it into the church wall. "Rot in hell," was the last thing that angel heard as he erupted in holy flame. It was only once the enemy had turned to ash that Naruto took a deep breath and looked around. The abandoned church had been wrecked in the battle, burn marks on the walls from the sheer amount of holy fire that had been thrown around, yet somehow the girl at the front of the room had been left unharmed, at least from the battle. Naruto's shoes made echoing clacks as he ran to the altar, the chains melting instantly with a wave of his hand as the girl fell to the ground. She was quite beautiful, and her naked body, although incredibly attractive, did not distract Naruto. He knelt down next to her and began to stare into her emerald green eyes. He was searching for something and was not sure what the answer was. He could sense his father's gift to this girl, a sacred gear that was a tier below the Longinus, twilight healing, the ability to heal without discrimination. It was probably the reason why she had been attacked and the sacred gear almost extracted. It was a rare gift and one that told him of the kind of girl she was. The girl was frightened. Cold sweat trailing down her body as the only thing keeping her alive was Naruto's warm aura. It gave her hope that not all was lost. Naruto took a deep breath. "What is your name?" The girl gave a hacking cough as she tried to answer. "Asia Argento." Naruto nodded. This was what he and Michael had designed the system for, to protect the pure. "There has not been a better time to help a pure soul," Naruto said with a warm smile. "May the light of heaven protect us both in our adventures." Asia's eyes widened as she saw Naruto pull out a small silver playing card. "Rise and become my eight of hearts." Her eyes began to close themselves as he spoke his next words. "I will protect you into the next life." Amen. And then all was black. Naruto was nervous. He was rarely ever nervous. While he was often joking around and cheerful, Naruto had always had decent control over his emotions and rarely showed what he was thinking. He had been taught this way since he was a child due to being a future successor of heaven, one that could eventually face the kings of hell and the fallen in both diplomatic and actual combat. The last time he was nervous was the first time he tried break down the beast. It was terrifying, the idea of losing control and truly fusing with Kurama. Naruto was easily Satan level, if not low super devil level. Kurama was a being on the same level as the heavenly dragons. If the two were to lose control while they were fused, heaven would be in a lot of trouble. He had also been nervous the first time he had snuck out of the house with Raph. He couldn't even imagine what would happen if Michael or, God forbid, Gabriel caught them. Sure, the midnight flying trip was fun and sure, America was lovely, but still, that woman was terrifying. Luckily and unluckily for him, he wasn't trying to unlock one of the ultimate levels of the sacred gear or sneaking out of heaven. No, today he was going to take Rias on their first date. Naruto sat on the couch with a sigh. It had been a long day. After saving Asia the other day, he had gone through a metric shit ton of paperwork to get the girl into the school without questions being asked. Not to mention after that he had tests which, while they weren't difficult, were annoying as hell. Finally Naruto spent the last 2 hours with Akano helping Issei with his boosted gear and Asia with her twilight healing. Issei was an interesting case. Sure, they had very different personalities and sure, Issei was a little read as very perverted. Naruto couldn't help but he feel like he was responsible for the boy. Issei was younger than him and weak and ignorant of the world. Not to mention Naruto was the one who let Rias reincarnate him. And while Naruto personally didn't like most beings more powerful than him, a trait he was informed his father had too. He could see the positives of having one of the most powerful dragons in your body. During Issei's training, Naruto had trained him to release the boosted gear and begin boosting immediately by launching extremely low-leveled Bijudamas at the young Red Dragon Emperor. This had forced Issei to activate his gift to increase his durability or get shot to the other side of hell with the blast. Naruto was happy with his choice to make Asia one of his saints. The girl was kind, innocent, a true believer and a wonderful person who didn't deserve to die from a gift she was given. The twilight healing was incredibly powerful, with the ability to heal any being, no matter the species. When Asia had been told she had been expelled because she had healed a devil, Naruto had been furious, although not the reason she had thought. He had been furious that his family had done that just because her act of compassion. It was only Asia and Akino's intervention that stopped Naruto to flying to heaven and giving Michael a piece of his mind. Naruto groaned as he removed his blazer and tie, slowly undressing to relax. He was not expecting a door behind him to open. He was really not expecting Rias to be standing in the doorway with the sexiest lingerie he had ever seen in his life. Sure, he was from heaven and there wasn't a lot of lingerie shops, but still, that black lace made his face blush red and blood begin to rush to other places. It was thin and stuck to her incredible figure like a second skin, outlining every part of her and leaving nothing for Naruto to miss. Rias gestured for him to come to her with a single finger and Naruto could feel himself begin to sweat. "I see can't." Naruto stuttered out, his brain fighting his body's reactions. Naruto couldn't stop his eyes from being glued to Rias as she sexily sauntered over to him, swaying her hips. Before he could escape, she straddled him, grinding her lower body all over his. She leaned close, whispering in his ear in her deep, sensual voice, "Why not, darling?" "It's not right." Naruto's face was as red as Rias' hair. He tried to get up, but in this state, Rias was able to surprise him by grabbing his wrists and pushing them over his head. There was a pulse of magic as the spell that she had bought from a shady dealer in the underworld activated themselves. The spell involved coating your hands with magical energy before grabbing your victim's wrists, thus sealing their arms to whatever surface they were pressed against. "Now tell me why not. I like you, you like me, let's do this," Rias said with a bright smile before she disappeared from Naruto's view. "You're right, but..." Naruto began before gasping when he felt his pants being unzipped. He struggled against his restraints as he felt Rias wrap her hand around. Naruto's brain finally caught up to what was going on and in an attempt to save himself, screamed out the first thing in his mind, "What about if I take you on a date?" Rias stopped herself mid-movement and looked up at Naruto with amused light blue eyes. "Keep talking." Naruto saw the light at the end of the tunnel. "You Saturday. Me and you all day. I like you a lot and I don't want it to be just lust. So let's go a little slow for now," Naruto continued, smiling a reassuring smile. He was confused about what he felt, but he knew he wanted to be more to Rias than just her friend. Not just lust." Rias mumbled under her breath. She paused and let go of what she was holding, the seals restraining Naruto dissolving. "Saturday is going to be fun," Rias said with a mischievous smile, carefully grinding her lower regions over Naruto before she got up with that same sexy saunter. Naruto groaned as he watched Rias slowly torture him. "I hate to see her go, but I love to watch her leave." Rias stopped and turned around, giving him a small wink. "Oh, and look sharp, darling. I am planning to rock your world." Then with a flip of her stunning crimson hair, the Princess of Destruction was gone, leaving Naruto to drop his face into his hands. "What have I gotten myself into?" Naruto was broken from his thoughts by a pair of small hands covering his eyes. Naruto smiled as he grabbed her hands and whipped around, taking a big look at her. His jaw dropped a bit. Whoa, Rias looked gorgeous, her already beautiful features heightened by a bit of green eyeshadow that made her bright sea green eyes pop. She was wearing a tight mid-thigh length dress that was the same color as her hair and had a strange cut to it so that it showed a bit of cleavage while also remaining elegant. She looked perfect. Rias giggled at his expression. "I like that reaction." Naruto almost laughed as he stood up and was still a lot taller than her even though she was wearing high heels, which earned him an adorable pout from the girl. "Don't you look handsome?" Rias said with a small smile of her own, her sinful devil eyes quite pleased at the sight. She was right, of course. He had gotten a bit of advice from Michael without giving his big brother any details and had gotten a rather slim suit that showed his lean physique while also being classy, an ebony suit with a blue tie that matched his eyes. Naruto looked like quite a catch. Naruto, however, was not as confident as he looked and stuttered for words for a second. "Oh, well." Before he could dissolve into a mess of embarrassment, Naruto quickly reached into a small pocket dimension and pulled out a bouquet of the most pristine red roses she had ever seen. "Here," he said as he placed the bouquet in his date's hands with a bit of embarrassment. "They were the same color as your hair, so I picked them." "Oh, thank you," Rias said with a bit of surprise. No one besides her brother had ever bought her flowers before, especially not roses. "I wasn't sure what to plan for today, so I thought we could start with a walk through a park," Naruto said with a scratch of his head awkwardly, remembering the previous night's struggle to think of a nice date. "After that we can catch that new anime movie I heard you mentioned you wanted to see, as well as this nice bookstore I found that sells rare books and manga. Finally, I have reservations at that new 5-star restaurant that serves Japanese fusion cuisine," he finished before letting out a breath he hadn't known he was holding in. Naruto had been so worried. This would be his first date. Heaven didn't really have a lot of girls that couldn't fall or even had the guts to talk to him. Rias Gremory was up front and was an embodiment of sin. Not the kind of person you think a prince of heaven would date, but maybe it would work. "Wow, Rias now was the one who looked a little bit awkward. Now I feel like I didn't do enough for you." "Your company is more than enough for me," Naruto said with a small whiskered smile that earned him a small smile. He held out his elbow for her. "Shall we go?" "Of course," Rias said with a smile of her own as she took his arm. It was then the offspring of dark and light walked out the door to a new future. "This is nice." Naruto was right. The fading sunlight cast the faded pastels that colored the country of Japan in a light ethereal glow. They had picked a small bench underneath a tree who was slowly losing its flowers, showing them in a blizzard of petals every now and then. Naruto had his arm around Rias, who felt so small, cuddled against him for warmth. As they had walked there, older couples would look at them every now and then and smile as if they remembered times like that, when they were young and free and could love who they wanted no matter what stood in their way, the way it should be. Rias hummed to herself in thought, her head on his shoulder. Who would have thought my first date ever would with an archangel? I could say the same. Going on a date with the devil princess wasn't something I ever saw myself doing, Naruto said with a small smile, but I am happy I am doing it. Rias snuggled tighter against him. You're sweet. I've been wondering, Rias asked after a moment of silence. How can you do this? Go on dates, find me sexually attractive, etc., she continued when she saw the look of confusion on his face, without falling. Naruto shuffled nervously. I can't fall. Rias glanced up at him with a look of shock on her face which resulted in a sigh leaving Naruto's mouth. My father, my eldest brother and I cannot fall. Our bodies house too much holy and divine energy for it to suddenly change to corrupted fallen energy, he explained with a neutral face. He had been over this a few times and it always left people shocked. Then why hasn't Michael, Rias said, now shifting a little bit awkwardly while trying to rid the thoughts of the archangel. Oh, I think he might be asexual or something of the sort, Naruto shrugged, never having thought about it, or maybe my dad formed him like that, I don't know. Rias raised an eyebrow. He didn't form you like that. Maybe after my time as leader is done, I am supposed to make an heir. Naruto sighed. Who knows what my dad was thinking? You sound like you miss him, Rias said with a small sympathetic smile. I wish I got to know him better, Naruto said, his grip on Rias slightly tightening unconsciously, that's all. So what's life like for you? Being the son of God and all, Rias asked, trying to get more information on the enigma that was Naruto. I don't know. I am kind of famous in heaven and it's weird because people don't think they can approach me, Naruto said with a sigh, so I usually spend time with my family and some of the high-ranking exorcists like Dulio. Rias raised an eyebrow. So how did you end up in Kuo? Well, my family wanted me out of heaven and it would be weird for me to be traveling the world by myself, so since I looked this age, they sent me to high school, Naruto explained with a sigh. He still was mad at Raph. He chuckled at Rias' confused expression. Don't feel bad, it's a weird story. After another moment of silence, Naruto decided to ask his own question. What about you? Rias flushed awkwardly at the thought of her odd relatives. Oh, my family is kind of strange. I love my parents and my brother is a weirdo, but I wouldn't trade him for the world. That's awesome, Naruto chuckled. So how long until you take me to meet them? The smile left his face when he saw Rias tense. You're kidding me. The two sat in silence for a moment before Rias sighed and began to speak. When I was born, my family arranged a marriage between me and Riser Fenix, second son of the Fenix family. The problem is he's a dick and I hate him. He just wants me as a toy and he's a douchebag, she continued, refusing to look at Naruto's face as she talked. I was hoping if my family saw I had someone who honestly cared for me, even if it was an angel, then they would dissolve the marriage and let me be happy, she finished with a sigh, tears starting to pool around the corners of her eyes. Naruto removed his arm from around her shoulders and moved away from her. He didn't know what he felt, guilt, betrayal, anger. He felt dirty and hurt, like he was disgusted with himself that he had been played. After a full minute of silence, he finally spoke. So you've been using me. By this time, tears had begun to fall from Ria's eyes as she violently shook her head. No. I care about you so much more than I should. I thought it was lust in the beginning before I realized that you were strong but kind and caring, Rias admitted. So I realized I would rather be with someone who I care about even if my family might not approve of, she confessed, wiping a tear from her eye. Then someone who my family approves of and I could never feel anything but hatred and disgust for. With that they sat in silence for a little bit more and Naruto just stared at the pastel country for some sort of guidance. He knew what his family would say. Gabriel would yell at him. Raphael would tell him to be strong. Uriel probably wouldn't care, but it was Michael's advice that he would take into account. Michael would say something like follow your heart and fight for what you want. Michael always had the best advice. Now the question is, what was his heart telling him? His brain was telling him to unfold his wings and fly away, leaving Kuo and this girl behind to save himself, but his heart told him something different. What's your dream? Naruto said, breaking the silence. Rias stopped to think about it for a moment before nodding confidently, wiping his eyes with a small handkerchief. I guess to lead my people to a new future. Naruto smiled once more. I like that dream. He slid his arm around her shoulders right now, this time holding her like he never planned to let her go. I promise I will never let anyone harm you or your dream as long as life courses through my veins. Rias mock glared at him before snuggling against his chest. I can take care of myself, thank you very much. Then let me stand by your side, Naruto offered, his divine blue eyes staring at her with amusement. Rias giggled, her sea-green eyes meeting his. I like that a lot. Our blonde-haired archangel smirked before he glanced toward a rather fancy golden watch on his wrist. His eyes widened at the position of the shorter hand and from his back burst his many golden wings. Shit. We're gonna miss the movie. Before Rias could even comment, she was swept off her feet and being carried bridal style as Naruto took to the sky at breakneck speeds. Don't let go. He managed to yell as he sped across town to the movie theater, although he couldn't stop a smile from crossing his face when he heard the little squeak Rias made as he flew. Naruto was happy he had been listening when Rias mentioned the movie she wanted to see. Sure, it was full of dramatic action sequences and weird romantic moments that made the angel want to sweat drop, but he also noticed how Rias' eyes sparkled as she watched it. She had been in such a good mood, she had clung to Naruto's arm, much to the jealousy of many passing men. As they walked through the manga shop, it only got worse after Naruto had paid for the dozens of novels the Destruction Princess had picked out with a heavenly credit card given to the Seraphim that neither had a limit nor a bill to be repaid. Naturally for Rias Gremory, any guy who bought her that much manga was going to have a very special night. Rias had almost wanted to jump him there and then claim his lips as her own when Naruto reminded them they still had dinner. The two walked side by side, their hands seemingly fitting together perfectly. It was like that they walked all the way to the Japanese restaurant, the lady at the giving them a bored and pretentious stare. Names, she said rather dryly. Naruto Namikaze, Naruto said with a bit of confidence. It was that broke the young woman from her attitude. Oh Namikaze-sama, right this way. She quickly grabbed two menus and began to lead them to their table, as if she was afraid to do anything wrong despite Naruto being 5 years younger than her. Namikaze-sama? Rias asked with a bit of a smile, having noticed all of this herself. I put down a big deposit for this spot, Naruto shrugged, not to mention my dad owned a few major human corporations under the Namikaze name. Rias raised an eyebrow at the information. Interesting. Here's your table, the waitress said after leading them to a small secluded table all the way in the back of the restaurant with a large window and no one else around. Anything you need, just ask, she said. Naruto nodded as he pulled out Rias' chair for her before sitting down himself. It was only then he noticed the woman had not walked away and was instead just standing there staring at them eagerly. A few minutes would be nice, Naruto admitted, causing the waiter to blush and walk away awkwardly in embarrassment. So this guy you're betrothed to? Naruto said after a minute of glancing at the menu. What's he's like? He's disgusting. He gropes the women in his peerage and wants to take me the day of our marriage as his own sex toy, Rias growled. He doesn't care about me besides the fact he finds me sexy. Naruto paused, thought about that, frowned before nodding in understanding. So how do we get you out of this? Rias smiled. She liked that he said we could have sex, Rias suggested, making Naruto look at her like she had lost her mind. Rias sighed. While it won't break the engagement, it would cause issues, most likely leading to a confrontation with Riser. So if we have sex, I will have to fight the Kentucky Fried Chicken for the right to be with you, Naruto said a bit incredulously. I am not sure who will win in a battle with one of the strongest angels and a young high-class devil, Rias said with a mischievous smile that made Naruto realize she had thought and planned this out. He chuckled. You're a sneaky little vixen, I try, Rias admitted with a shrug and a flip of her hair. Their conversation was briefly interrupted by the waiter coming over to take their order, but by the time they left, Naruto knew what his next question was. What can you tell me about this Riser, in terms of battle? Basic Phoenix Flames, basic wind affinity, a decent amount of demonic power. His peerage isn't exceptionally strong, but they had numbers and coordination on their side, Rias explained with a frown. Riser was a dick, but he was powerful, maybe too powerful than her own peerage. My holy flames can overcome his demonic flames and my wind affinity is quite high, so I can probably defeat him on all fronts, Naruto said almost immediately after taking a bite of his meal. He thought about it for a second before sighing. Would I have to call down my saints to engage in a raiding game with this Riser? Raiding games were usually between devils and their peerages, so he was unsure what the protocol was for the Brave Saint project. Rias shrugged. Most likely. Naruto paused for a second and stopped eating, instead deciding to just stare at Rias for a moment. She was beautiful and interesting. God, he was lucky. It took the crimson-haired princess a few seconds to notice her date is staring at her, causing her to blush and look away. What? Naruto froze. his mind racing to change the subject so he didn't have to explain that he had just been staring at her for no reason at all. I rather like the people of your peerage, they all seem kind, if not a bit confusing. Rias raised an eyebrow at the wording. What do you mean? Naruto blushed and scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Akano is, Rias frowned at thought of her seductive queen and her actions. Don't even get me started with her. Naruto decided not to push the subject and eat a bite of his food before smiling as he realized something. You know, I could help you train them. How? Rias asked with a bit of confusion. Kiba seems to be struggling with the trauma of the Holy Sword project, Naruto commented as if it was nothing. Rias gasped in surprise. How did you? I am an angel. I can sense the warped holy affinity within him as well as the odd sacred gear he holds, Naruto said with a shrug. I can help him with the Holy Sword aspect of his powers. Kaneko seems to be trying to fight against her natural abilities, Naruto continued speaking, reciting everything he had analyzed a while ago. Channeling Kurama's powers have made me an expert in a different kind of senjutsu than Kuroka, but one I could try to teach Kaneko regardless. I can help that young Dampier you have sealed away with his sacred gear as well, Naruto said with a small shrug as if it was simple. Ria's surprised face made it obvious she didn't think it was quite as simple. Wait. I sensed Belor as soon as I entered the building, Naruto said with a smile, thinking fondly of his own sacred gear. I can try to teach him to channel the hatred of his Longinus level sacred gear just like I did mine. And finally my father gave me all the holy elemental abilities that he had, Naruto finished with a small hint of pride, ones that some of his higher winged angels inherited. It was then the gears in Rias' head clicked, like holy lightning. Your sweet, Rias chuckled to herself as she began to take this all in, training your girlfriend's peerage like that. Naruto, who was mid-bite, almost choked on his food. Girlfriend. Yep, girlfriend, Rias said with a devilish smile. Rias Gremory's boyfriend. Naruto was silent as he thought about it before he nodded. I like the way that sounds. Rias giggled, her sea-green eyes twinkling with I actually like Rias Namikaze even better. Naruto smiled, his mind racing. God, am I in love with her? So you mentioned you play music? Rias asked as she snuggled slightly closer to him. The two had left their meal a little while ago and were just enjoying their walk. While super sexy, Rias' sexy dress was not the most warm thing in the frigid evening. Fortunately for her, the son of God she was on a date was immune to all conditions and barely felt a bit of cold pushing against him, so his natural body heat was easily enough to fill her with a warmth. This also gave her an excuse to rub her breasts against him to excite him, for no reason whatsoever. Oh yeah. I picked up guitar about 10 years ago and I never put it down since, Naruto admitted with a small modest shrug. I also learned piano from Uriel a few years ago, but I never was amazing with it. What about you? Naruto asked with an amused look on his face. I feel like you're musically gifted as well. I've been told I could sing by some other people, Rias said with a small blush she would have blamed on the cold if asked. She had always been hesitant when it came to singing. We should make a band, Naruto chuckled, you know, once everything calmed down. It didn't take long for the two of them to begin joking around and planning this band they wanted to make. They both agreed that Rias Rook Kaneko would be a great drummer while either Kiba or Issei could be their bassist, with Rias and Naruto on co-lead vocals as well as Naruto on lead guitar. This dream band had the potential to be awesome. In fact, the two had spent so much time talking and were having so much fun in each other's company that they had barely noticed they had walked all the way back to Naruto's house. So want to come in? Naruto asked awkwardly. I never thought you'd ask, Rias said with a grin before she jumped him. Naruto grunted as he was pushed against a wall, Rias' long legs gripping around his waist like a waist. There was the sound of expensive fabric ripping as Rias destroyed her dress in a single motion, revealing a pair of the most amazing breasts Naruto had ever seen. He would have flushed a little at the sight were it not for the constant assault on his mouth that he began to fervently match with his own tongue. With his incredible strength, it wasn't difficult for him to overpower Rias and flip positions so she was pinned against the wall as he began to attack her neck, leaving kisses and small bites that would claim her as his. Buttons flew through the air as the crimson-haired beauty ripped off his shirt with ease, and it didn't take long for Rias to begin longingly grinding her body against his. Naruto was like a master at work as he pleasured every sensual area of his girlfriend's body, and Rias could only stare blankly with half-lidded eyes as she was brought to the brink with simple foreplay alone. His angelic hands worked over every inch of her sinful breasts, twisting and squeezing to make the beauty girl squeal in a way most men only dream of. And then the dam broke for Rias and she released with a glass-shattering scream that made Naruto smile and give her an amused smile. Shall we move this into the bedroom? he asked to the slowly recovering girl, who immediately tightened her grip on him at mere thought of more of this kind of loving. Naruto was in for a long night. Rias awoke to the sound of an acoustic guitar. Well, it actually sounded like a whole string of guitarists, but Rias wasn't so sure. The sound was complex, layers of high and low notes and simultaneous different rhythms that blended together in a masterpiece. With a grunt of pain, Rias stood up, only to almost fall over from the soreness of her lower body. Her special parts felt empty now, as if it was missing its most filling piece, not loose in the slightest, but well used and abused. Damn. Rias cursed. Her hand grabbed onto anything it could as support while her knees were pressing against each other to ease the pain her body was in. But dear Satan, did it feel so good. Baby steps. Baby steps, Rias repeated to herself as she walked out of the room. Sitting on a leather chair in only his boxers was Naruto, a look of pure concentration on his face. His fingers flew over the strings, each focused on an individual task that when added together created something heavenly. He had told her he had been studying the guitar since he had been a child under the encouragement of Duilio. Apparently the guitar was much older than humans and devils thought, as apparently there were arrangements for the instrument written by seraphim and angels long before it was thought to be invented. Rias didn't have it in her to interrupt him and simply waited for him to finish his piece with a small loving smile on her face. He glanced up once he finished, a bright smile crossing his face as he looked at her. "You look beautiful." Naruto put down his guitar and picked up Rias to sit him down on his lap, lovingly holding her to him with a twinkle in his eye. Even when placed on his lap in front of him, she looked tiny in his arms and unbelievably beautiful even after the aftermath of the night before. Her red hair was messy, tangled and likely filled with mixed juices from the two of them. Hickeys littered her neck and breasts like stars filled the sky. Rather clear handprints could be seen on her breasts, hips and shapely ass that left little to the imagination, as if someone with super strength had been gripping and spanking parts of her body for no apparent reason. Nevertheless, Naruto had not left the night unscathed. Long scratch marks crisscrossed his muscular chest and back, along with numerous bite marks on his shoulder from his rather loud and passionate girlfriend. "I am exhausted," Rias said as she kissed him lightly on the lips. "I think I need some bed rest to make me feel better." Naruto rolled his eyes before he began to lightly kiss on the neck. "You're unsatisfiable, aren't you?" "Absolutely." Rias smiled mischievously like a devil she was. She gave a rather sensual but excited moan as she was picked up bridal style and carried once more toward the bedroom. Once more there was a mixing of darkness and light. Thanks for watching.